Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you and welcome to this morning's webinar, the fourth in the financial year for the Central Bank. And this morning, we'll be presenting to you and discussing with you our draft Central Bank strategic plan for the financial years 2021-22 to 2025-26. We will present the key elements of the plan. We will touch a little bit on some of the accomplishments in relation to our current plan, which ends on September 30th. And then, of course, we will open the floor for a riveting question and answer session. The presentations will last for just about half an hour, and then we want to devote an hour to spend with you and to engage you on your questions. We have a distinguished panel of presenters this morning, led by the Governor, Dr. Alvin Hilaire, ably supported and assisted by the Deputy Governor, Dr. Dorian Noel, and our Chief Risk Manager, Mr. Harun Abdul-Haqq. I will return in about half an hour to moderate this morning's proceedings, and I'm Nicole Crooks, just in case you don't know. So now I turn over to the Governor to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Nicole, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to have you here with us today as we explain what we are trying to do over the next 5 years. So what exactly are we trying to do today? Well, we have our strategic plan that we have put together that outlines our goals, our aspirations, our objectives, our policies for the next 5 years. And we believe as a professional organization, and more so as a public institution, it is our responsibility to explain simply and clearly to the public what we are doing, what we have done, what we are doing, and to report faithfully and to get your feedback. So this is how the Central Bank is dealing with our strategic plan. So the strategic plan, for the next 5 years, we want to set out our what, our why, and our how. More than that, we need to account for what we actually do and get feedback. So we will not only be presenting our plan, but as it unfolds, we will be reporting exactly how we have done, and you can critique, you can give us feedback because we think it's quite important to do so. So let me go directly into our current plan, because we have a plan that has started since 2016, and it is now 95% complete. So if you turn to the next slide, please. So on the next slide, on our website, you will see our strategic plan that is, as Nicole said, going to end in a few months. October the 1st, we'll start in the new one, so this finishes on September the 30th of 2021. So the current plan has a number of themes, objectives, and projects. What are these about? The themes give us the what we are doing. What we are doing is based on the legislation, our governing legislation, and it talks about our financial stability objective to make sure that the Trinidad and Tobago financial system is safe and secure. It talks about our monetary policy role to make sure that inflation is low, the exchange rate regime and all of that good stuff is well organized. And then the third theme is how we organize ourselves to do what we do, what we call our internal operations. So now you have it nicely set out, our three buckets, as it will. To move this along, we have 10 objectives, some based on the monetary policy, some based on financial stability, and others based on internal operations. So that would be the what we are trying to do. And then the how, we break it down into projects. So you will see 23 projects, again, that are encapsulated in our strategic plan. So let me go quickly into what has happened in all these three areas. Monetary policy. So as I said, this is one theme. So we believe that in our assessment, there was meaningful progress made in all areas of our current strategic plan. First of all, the entire monetary policy framework has become much more robust. So we adapted our liquidity management system to the new circumstances, including the coronavirus situation, etc. We published some new working papers, and if you have time, you look on the website and you would see some excellent papers by our strong research economists. We had a new portfolio management system to organize our reserve management. This was the most expensive project for many years in the central bank, but it has been doing a lot. Elimination of the 1-cent coin, the introduction of the new polymer suite, all in a bid to streamline our currency management arrangement. On the financial supervision side, we also had important strides. The new insurance legislation was done after many years. Stronger bank capital requirements were introduced, stress tests. We documented our lessons from the CLICO resolution strategy. Now, I must admit that we didn't make as much progress on the CLICO exit as we thought because we were caught up in a legal situation. But at the same time, we did quite a lot, including reducing the liability or the debt to the government by $10 billion over our 5-year period. So I think that was important. The financial sector assessment program with the World Bank and IMF has helped us to organize our thoughts and our practices for supervision in the coming years. And now we've started payment system reform. On the internal side, how we organize ourselves, we have been streamlining things quite a lot, including procurement processes, a new formal whistleblowing mechanism to make sure that things, governance is secure and people can have redress, staff and so forth. We have our high quality Eric Williams Memorial lectures and so forth. So when you come to the central bank, you know that you're stepping in style and you're understanding things at a very high level, high quality lectures, and also done in a really professional manner, cybersecurity training, and because of the work from home requirements of the pandemic, we had to deal with that. So let me go quickly now into life. What do I mean? Well, when you start to plan, especially for 5 years, things happen that you don't expect. Well, what do? You can't just say, well, you throw your hands up in the air. You have to deal with it. And this is what we had to deal with. So when in 2016, we started our journey, new things came up. Let me deal with 4. The rapid pace of digitization, and things are moving at a hellish pace on that with cyber issues and so forth. We talk about that later, Bitcoins and this and that. We have to keep in touch with that. The macroeconomic impact of depressed energy prices. We didn't anticipate that oil prices and energy prices would tank, and then production difficulties would also complicate life, but we had to deal with that. Demonetization in the context of a national security exercise. Well, I guess you all are intimately familiar with our involvement in a huge national security exercise, and we played an important role in it, and I think we did as best as we could. And of course, the coronavirus pandemic. So this is what we had to deal with, and let me just talk quickly about what are we facing to set the stage for Dorian. We'll give you the plan. Our base case scenario is that the virus could actually continue to be with us for at least the first 2 years of the new plan period. Now, we are hoping for the best, but we are planning for the worst, because with the situation now with variants, with problems with access and so forth, we want to be sure that we are on solid ground, so we are taking it. And if things turn out to be better, all the better for us, but we are not taking things for granted. And even on our internal side, we have been very guarded. The need for coordinated national monetary, fiscal, and structural policies will remain. We are still in a delicate macroeconomic environment locally, and we know that one of the important ways of getting out of this is to have coordinated monetary, fiscal, and structural policies on the macroeconomic level. So we will be keeping a big part of our influence in that area. Finally, the demonstrated dynamism of the financial system and latent stresses from the pandemic require a more risk-based approach to supervision. What that means is that we know that we are not in a drill situation. We are in a pandemic. It is affecting the financial system. They have to deal with it. Everybody has to deal with it on their own personal circumstances. And we are in high alert mode because we understand that stresses could come to the fore if people have difficulties in servicing their loans. We need to be active. We need to be ready. And we are doing as best we can, training ourselves, talking to the banks, the financial institutions, and everybody to make things happen. So this is our approach, and this is what we are setting the stage for the coming years. So I now pass you on to Dorian.
Hi, good morning, and thanks, Governor. Our new strategic plan reflects an aggregation of the views of our stakeholders and analysis of our environment, both internal and external. It is designed with a specific aim to consolidate and further build upon our achievements over the last 5 years. Also, we ensure that the plan is appropriately aligned and calibrated to allow us to successfully achieve our 5-year strategic objectives, aligned to the current and future business of central banking, calibrated to available resources to ensure a 5-year completion success. Our strategic plan has 3 themes: monetary policy, financial stability, and internal operations, 9 objectives and 20 projects. The specifics of the plan are as follows. We intend to modernize and strengthen our monetary operations and policy, and significantly bolster our interface with international bodies. Key projects include strengthening technical and analytical research capabilities and policy issues, both monetary and financial stability. Success in those areas require us to fortify and enhance our data infrastructure and economic intelligence. In the next 5 years, we are going to be proactive in advancing 2 important policy initiatives: digitalization in Trinidad and Tobago, which has become very important since the emergence of the COVID-19 virus, and greening of the financial system. We are moving to integrate climate change and climate risks into our policy consideration. Both initiatives are complex and have major implications for the conduct of monetary and prudential policies. In the area of financial stability, we plan to strengthen our safeguards of the financial system to ensure stability and continuity of service to the general public. If we accept the fact that the global banking system is interconnected, then success in this area requires collaboration with other regulators, both at home and abroad. Finally, develop an efficient, secure, and stable payment system. We already started the work on this. In June, the draft payment bill was released for public comments, and we hosted a public seminar to discuss the bill, which many of you attended. A few projects to note: reinforcement and enhancement of banking sector supervision. We are going to advance risk-based supervision for the insurance sector in line with the new insurance bill, and look into pension system reform. No doubt, a new concern for most of us. Complete and operationalize a crisis management, recovery, and resolution plan for the financial sector. We have already laid the initial groundwork for this. Another key project is the development of an effective framework to monitor shadow entities, an instrument of credit, lending, and financing not currently under our supervision. These are hidden threats to financial stability, and again, the bank will have to work with other regulators on this important matter. Finally, our internal operations. The bank monetary and prudential activities require the support of our internal operations. In fact, our road to success over the next 5 years heavily depends on our internal operations. Our objectives are to streamline activities to promote a safe, secure, and creative working environment, further promote a staff culture of versatility, excellence, and commitment to efficiency and timely service delivery, expand and enhance our corporate social responsibility programs. Highlighted projects are strengthening our enterprise risk management system and corporate risk culture, continually updating our IT infrastructure to ensure consistency with current and future needs, and operational resilience. And finally, build upon our excellent stakeholder engagement and social support. I have outlined our strategic objectives and some projects. Another critical area of the plan, the performance and risk tracking framework. My colleague Harun will now speak to you.
Good morning all, and thank you, governors. From what we've heard throughout the morning, the effort to move the plan along in a disciplined manner should be now evident. The projects articulated by the Deputy Governor will be refined into distinct actionable items, which we shall refer to as components, and these components will be pursued at varying points over the 5-year period. The schedule presently on screen gives an idea of how this progress will be depicted at a high level. A cursory review of this table also reveals approximately 50% of these projects require the involvement of the technology and supervisory functions. Being aware of these linkages, we intend to monitor these interactions during the strategic period to ensure sufficient agility is demonstrated by these units in keeping pace with stakeholder needs. In approaching the development of the 2026 plan, we adopted a retrospective posture to identify which aspects of the present plan's implementation worked well. In the face of pandemic pressures, climate change challenges, and other unexpected eventualities, we all agreed that there were 4 essential practices that were key to our success. 1, the unambiguous lines of responsibility that were established. Secondly, clear timelines of completion. Thirdly, consistent periodic review of our progress was adhered to. And ultimately, keeping our reporting to stakeholders as simple as possible was also a very great or strong point in carrying things forward. So with this in mind, we incorporated these practices into our intended approach for the 2026 plan period. We stuck to a simple 3-step process and a relatable mnemonic, namely the A-B-C approach, being A, where we agree the strategic outcomes, B, where we build measurements with a particular focus on potential key performance indicators and periodic variance analysis to somewhat temper our ambitions. C, collaborate to ensure intended and realized benefits are achieved and transferred as we intend or as planned. So looking at this, this slide that we have here, we're seeing bullets 1 and 2. These 2 items mostly relate to A. That's where we're saying, look, we need a program management approach. So we're going to adopt that to ensure consistency. Now, when we say consistency, we're talking about consistency in logic between the objectives and the intended actions, as well as consistency between the resources available and financial budgets. Bullet 3, slide before us, this reflects the efforts of individual departments to build on what was achieved over the past few years, so progress shouldn't be lost, while adhering to a financially disciplined approach. Also, advancements in technology continue to influence our ways of working at a pace beyond our control. Unfortunately, central bankers, we are not omniscient beings, and so we remain cognizant of the need for continued upskilling on more technical and technological topics as well. Lastly, while we assign accountability for delivering these projects to the individual senior managers, the reality is that no one is an island, and intense collaboration will be required. It will be required across the bank to bring this plan to fruition. So this slide, we want to get a little more into the risk management side of things. And one of the things that we notice is, look, that while there are numerous perspectives and philosophies guiding enterprise risk practices, there's one common point of focus, and that is to ensure risk is viewed from a holistic perspective as far as is practical, with a focus on the achievement of an organization's goals. And so for the upcoming period, we have assessed the risk landscape in keeping with recognized international standards of practice and have devised specific frameworks to ensure we stay on top of emerging and strategic implementation risks. We also hope that by establishing a more defined risk management baseline, the bank will be able to benefit from a richer repository of performance data in years to come. This information can eventually be used in conducting historic examinations of our work and to identify potential strategic impediments brought about by less prominent causal factors. We also intend to leverage internally available tools to automate more administrative aspects of the strategic monitoring process while improving collaboration on all risk issues impacting the plan's achievement. The aim here is to create a seamless progression over the next few years while enabling all internal stakeholders to remain vigilant in the face of any challenges that may arise. So in closing, we anticipate that this occasion will prove to be a bellwether from which we would have viewed the next 5 years. And we also maintain our commitment to continually improve our reporting to you, our stakeholders, in a sensible and simple manner. We look forward to engaging with you again formally along the way, and particularly 2024, where we aim to conduct an interim review of our progress. So I thank you all for your participation, and we plan to sincerely deliver on our mandates with our nation's interests at heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three gentlemen. And the last thing that Harun said, we plan to sincerely deliver on our mandate to the best of our ability. Thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping guidelines. WebEx participants, feel free to use your question and answer section within the platform. You can raise your hand. There's a raise hand icon as well that you can raise your hand and we will see. And then to those joining us through the live stream, you can send your questions to cbtt@central-bank.org.tt. Okay, and of course you can join us via the live chat. All of your comments and your questions will be fed into us, and we will make an effort to address everything that you raise. So I'm looking to see if there's any question just yet, because we have a couple of things that came in before, so I can start with that. And I will pose this one to Dr. Noel as the newest member. Well, not even newest. Harun is the newest member. As the recently minted deputy governor, does the central bank intend to include cryptocurrencies like the Bitcoin on the balance sheet to assist with the current remittance challenges we face, similar to the way El Salvador is embracing Bitcoin? Dorian?
Thanks, Nicole. The central bank has taken note of recent development in the international environment, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency and crypto assets. We have taken note of the recent past legislation in El Salvador. In the context of the question that was asked, at this time, the answer is no. And the reason being is that from our perspective, we have to be very prudent in how we approach the issue of cryptocurrency and crypto assets, because the framework, the legislative framework, one, and two, the technology infrastructure as it stands in the country cannot support two important aspects of central bank mandate. One, ensuring stability of the financial system, and two, with all our regulators, ensuring the integrity of the financial system. With respect to Bitcoin and crypto assets, there's still some underlying concerns about the safeguard in place to protect the consumer. With respect to remittances, there's other ways in which you can get remittances in the country. And the traditional form is the US into our payment system. If, unfortunately, if there are those who receive remittances by the means of cryptocurrency or Bitcoins, there's not the necessary infrastructure in place at this time to ensure those things work effectively and secure in our financial system. So more or less, I hope I answer the question suitable, adequately to the person who raised that question. But that is, as it stands at this point in time. I appreciate the fact that likely at some point in the future, we will have to confront digital currencies. And, we have to differentiate digital currency, central bank digital currency, as opposed to cryptocurrency and crypto assets. That is a long debate. I won't prolong this session on this issue. But what I should mention, for those who are interested in the area, the central bank has produced some work on the issue of the differentiation between cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and central bank digital currency. And I think some of those works are available on our website. So they could have a look at some of the regulatory issues governing this matter at this point. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Dorian. So as we go along and the questions become more and more, I will manage the time of the responses. So I'm going on to, is there any potential framework that we are planning that can support open banking? Governor, will you take that one? Is there any potential framework that we have, that we are considering to support open banking?
Thanks a lot for the question. We are open to any manner of engagement. As I said, and as Dorian and Harun intimated, our approach now is to modernize operations to take advantage and to be in step with what is going on. Open banking, in a sense, opens up the field and makes things more amenable to competition. We are available to adopt any system that works for us, but the important things are safety of the consumers, of the financial system, and people have to understand what they're doing, and the competition has to be managed in that form. So yes, the answer is that we are open to it. We know that the banks can do with competition, because competition is always good, but we want to make sure that people understand the product and that the financial system is safe and secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Someone noticed that we talked about being a good corporate citizen in our plan, and they asked a bit around our corporate social policy, responsibility policy. So just to give a little insight into that, if I may, I'll just give a little insight into that. They said they didn't know that the central bank got involved in this area. And we feel very passionate about it. It's something that we have been involved with over the last few years, over many years. And in fact, if you go onto the website, you would see our CSR policy on the website. But in a nutshell, just to give you a sense of it, we support 3 priority areas through our CSR policy. One is economic empowerment, another is health and well-being, and the third is social development. We try very hard to focus on those areas that will support the youth and the people who are in need, who may be disadvantaged and may be vulnerable. And what happens is people can approach the bank they can write us, they can raise their case with us, they can outline it. We will actually communicate with you, get more information if needed, and provide support once we determine it's consistent with our corporate social responsibility policy. So it's just an area that I realized people were not aware of, and we're just happy to share some information on that. Going straight to another question. Onboarding of customers requires a face-to-face verification. Is there any amendment or clarification in the future that can streamline this? The necessity to verify the client is the same person as who he is purporting to be to open the account is understandable. However, if this is, there's a streamlined approach to allowing clients to open accounts digitally, the person who's sending the question is suggesting that that might be helpful. And they've gone further to say it seems to be something basic in the UK and the US. Any comment on that, Governor?
Yes, I mean, I like this question a lot because it actually opens up the whole issue of financial inclusion and the balance between banks and financial institutions trying to be safe, trying to make sure that people are not funding terrorist activities, that they're not engaged in money laundering and so forth. But at the same time, the balance is with overdoing it, and then you then attract no one. So we are working with the banks as it is to see what areas we could do, we could advance to streamline the operations and make things more and more simple for people to be able to engage and open an account, and at the same time be able to have assurance that the person has good credentials. So it is a work in progress, but we do embrace that, and we do understand now that things are changing. How you verify someone's identity before, you don't need to do that now. You have to go and check and see, do I know you? Do I know your grandfather? Do I know your grandmother? All this sort of thing. Now you could just say, well, they take a picture, you send some email, and you verify their online identity. So it is something that we are working on very carefully to make sure that financial inclusion is real and that people are not left out, particularly, and this could be particularly distressing in today's modern world, where if you have, let's say, to get from the government now, you have to get pandemic relief, but it's going online and you don't have an account, so you get stuck. So we don't want that. So we're working with institutions to move that along and balance the need for verification with reasonableness and openness.
Thanks, Governor. Richard, I'm seeing your hand up. Richard Young, and we are happy to invite you to speak. And if you would like to turn on your video, please go right ahead.
Right. Good morning. Let me first of all start by saying that, the central bank under the leadership of Governor Hilaire has to be commended, because in my little limited history in banking, I've never seen this openness and this willingness to engage publicly. I don't know whether it was because of COVID, but I think it was even prior to COVID. So let me first of all commend Governor Hilaire and his team. I looked at the draft, and when I looked at the 20 projects, I thought it was quite ambitious, Governor and Dorian. I mean, and then I saw in the draft there were many wipes as if you were completing it, and then of course this morning you had a lot of them running during the 5-year period. So I say that, on a very pragmatic basis, I'm not trying to be negative, of course, that maybe it's a little ambitious, and I wonder whether in listing them in the 3 themes, and I really like the approach, the theme and the objectives, it really is good methodology. May I interpret the firing order to be in priority? So that if you have from 1 to 7 in the first theme, I know that the bar chart suggested that they're all running concurrently. So I guess this is more a pragmatic kind of question. And I just wanted to comment on one last one also. I think as a country, we get very excited when there's a new thing. And as we know, crypto has been going on for quite some time. And we look at other countries where, they're coming with a CBDC. I think there's perhaps the need for the bank, and I think Dr. Noel did a good job explaining some of it. But, I get a kind of a daily newsletter on anti-money laundering and so on. What is the headline this morning? Crackdowns by regulators can pop the crypto bubble and mean Bitcoin is unsuitable for professional investors, says UBS. This is this is not even a regulator. So I think it's important that the country, perhaps through this medium, understand. Maybe we like new things and we like sexy things, but they don't understand the implication, right? But really, I asked really whether are you taking on quite a lot, and if you could do it, I am so happy because the country will benefit.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you so much for all that you have contributed and for your continued interest in the bank. I'm turning you to Governor to respond.
All right, thanks, Richard, and I'll start, and then Harun will pick up on how we actually do things. Is the plan ambitious? Yes, and I think it should be. I mean, we can't sell ourselves short. We have the capacity in the bank, we have the capacity in the country. Sometimes I think we are not confident enough, but I have confidence in our people as a country and our staff. We could do a lot, and once we set ourselves to it, we're not deluding ourselves that they may not be ambitious, but once we focus and we get our act together, we could do it. And we're not starting from scratch. We have a strategic plan that is already in train now, and so this one looks new, but it isn't. It is based on the framework set from the current plan, but it may not have been exposed as much, I guess. So you could take a look at it, and you could also take a look at our 9 reports half yearly that we do to measure and to report to the public on our progress. The second question answer is no. We don't. If you look at number 1 down, it is not in order of priority. They are all high priority. We have to phase them depending on the resources and so, but it is not, the numbering does not reflect priority. For example, in particular, if you look at our staff engagement and versatile staff, that comes way down at the bottom because it happens to be in internal operations and it happens to be number whatever it is. But clearly we depend on our wonderful staff, and that in itself is a high priority. So just to clarify that, and we do agree with you, and I think take counsel from you in looking at things in a measured fashion. We are alive to what the flavors of the day, and we do examine everything, but we are also measured in how we adopt depending on how it works with our particular circumstances. So yes, we do understand the crypto issues. We are measured in our engagement. We are having IMF technical assistance as we speak on it, and we've been looking at it very carefully. We know the issues, and we will get there in a measured fashion. But thanks a lot for your comments. Let me just ask Harun to continue on the implementation of the plan and how you are planning to make us do what we have set out to do.
Yeah. So, I think I would have mentioned in my segment some of the things that we're looking at in addition to what have been, or those things that would have been reported on in past. One is the financial side of things, budgets. We, on an ongoing basis, we're hoping to actually track what's going on, report on what's going on, and adapt our ways of working if needs be. Additionally, the resources that we have available to us, be it human resources, technology, and otherwise, is something that we also want to keep our minds and eyes on. Now, in terms of the actual implementation, we hope to track things using performance metrics or indicators on an ongoing basis. So yes, we are controlled by what resources financially and persons, technology, etc. But I think the metrics is what really would help us going forward. So just in case we might not be, or we think we might not be going on a path that we would like to be on, we should be able to take some action from up front. And that's where the keyword vigilant comes in. So that consultation, that collaboration across the respective units as well in implementing what needs to be, I think that should be helpful. That's it, without trying to give too much detail on the nuts and bolts.
Thank you so much, Harun. I'll talk a little bit later about as a member of the team. Trust me, Governor finds a way for all of us to be accountable for all that is happening in those strategic projects. A couple of questions from different sources but related, so let me just throw them out. One talks about the fact that we may already be lagging behind other major economies related to digital advancements. Do we foresee any rapid developments and can allow us to catch up? That's one. And another one that's very pointed. What is our position on the adoption of digital signatures, which is the norm in other jurisdictions?
Take the easy one and I'll leave the hard one. I'll talk about the digital signatures and leave the hard one for Dorian on the digitization. Yes, unambiguously, yes. We think digital signatures do make sense and we think we should move there as quickly as possible. There may be some, so conceptually we are all for it. There may be some legislative things that need to be sorted out. I don't know. That may include who accepts it. And I'm not sure if, let's say, the government has the legal authority to accept it. But I think all of these things are quite manageable and we should be moving in that direction, clearly. So, Dorian, you want to take a digitization stuff?
Yeah, yes, thanks, Governor. Nicole, can you just repeat the last part of the question? I didn't, hear the last part.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dorian. We were asking about, or the person was asking about the adoption of digital signatures, which is the norm in other jurisdictions. And then before that, we were talking about the fact that we are lagging behind in terms of digital advancements. And do we have plans for us to kind of close that gap to be able to catch up?
Okay, thanks, Nicole. All right, so with respect to lagging behind, yes, perhaps it seems that we are lagging behind other countries in terms of digitalization of our financial system. We accept that. But no, all is not lost. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shifted somewhat and have a positive impact. We might think that COVID-19 is a sad occurrence, but it had some positive impact on the banking system. Because what we have seen is the shift to online banking. We have seen a number of banks roll out digital products and digital services. So that will, enhance, one, the acceptance in the system by users, etc. And they will demand a lot more digital service and products to go with it. And, obviously our infrastructure will have to shift to meet this change in demands. The other important thing that we have to take into account, the government has signaled the intention to digitize Trinidad and Tobago economy. That is one of their policies that is set in the last budget. And they have, over the past, they have been working to achieve that objective. I think the International Financial Center, and I think Mr. Young could confirm this for me, have given a mandate to ensure the digitization of Trinidad and Tobago economy by 2023. And one of that important aspect of that is, ensuring that all government departments, the issue of disbursement and receipt of payment is done in the electronic form. And so with all those bits and pieces that are coming together, I'm certain that we're gonna pick up, and and the distance between us and other countries in terms of digitization will close that gap. So I am hopeful that the gap can be closed, but we require broad users acceptance, and then the intrusive the environment, the conducive environment, the legislative framework, the protection framework, everything. Once that comes together, we could advance the digitalization of our financial system and the economy.
Thanks, Dorian. I wanted to share a comment that Richard shared with the panelists for the benefit of those who are not in the WebEx. TTIFC, the International Financial Center, is working with the Ministry of Public Admin to advance e-signatures. as well as with the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs. So just so you have a sense of what else is happening in response to the question that was raised by someone on social media. Oh, and just a comment that someone's encouraging us, they're thinking it's beneficial, suggesting it would be beneficial for us to get feedback from banks related to this whole major digital enablers issue so that we can close the gap more easily. So just someone making a comment to us. Going to a question and staying with Dorian because it's still related, Governor and Harun, take a little rest. Just switching to Dorian. Despite El Salvador adopting Bitcoin, the World Bank has not supported its adoption. What are the implications in such a scenario? So Dorian, Governor, either one in weigh in.
Nicole, you need to be a bit more specific, but I'm going to take the first shot of this question. The position of the World Bank, if we look across the globe, seem to be consistent with most major global central bank on the issue of Bitcoins and crypto assets and cryptocurrency. That is consistent. It's going to, and once the World Bank and these major global central banks, talking about the Federal Reserve, Bank of England, Japan, Germany, all these countries, they accept the fact that, digitization of the economy is taking place, and at some point, digital assets and digital currency along the lines of central bank digital currency will be the future. The question is, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency does not fit into the traditional regulatory framework to ensure financial stability and safeguard the integrity of the financial system. And that is the concern for regulators. And if you have noticed, even China has taken a dim view with respect to cryptocurrency and crypto assets, and the regulatory policies, recent regulatory actions of the Chinese government have a significant impact on Bitcoin valuation to this day. So the World Bank is just consistent. That will, the implication of that's going to slow down the acceptance and growth of these types of Bitcoin and crypto assets, but that does not mean the issue of central bank digital currency will be affected. I think most global central bank is pushing the agenda, is looking a bit more aggressively into these states. They recognize the need to counteract the non-traditional digital form of currencies that are going to have implications for monetary and prudential policies. And they are working on the central bank digital currency. As the governor indicated, the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago is also have started the work on the issue of central bank digital currency.
Thank you. So, Governor, I'm going to give you this other question. How will the regulations that we are working on, that we are developing, how are those likely to affect the operations of cooperative societies?
All right, that's a very interesting question in the sense that the central bank regulates certain financial institutions, but not others. Specifically, we regulate commercial banks, we regulate non-bank financial institutions, we regulate insurance companies, pension funds, etc. Cooperatives, credit unions are not currently in our purview. We do, and we have in our current strategic plan, as well as in our future strategic plan, have interest or have plans to engage more with the credit union sector and to understand what is happening and to prepare them as best as we can for improving their operations. Why is that important? Because many people in Trinidad and Tobago have a credit union account because it is close to them, they may have shares in it, they can get easier access to credit, financing, etc. So it does touch a lot of people, a lot of individuals, particularly who do not have access to other forms of financial intermediation. We do recognize, however, that there may be some gaps in the governance framework we have currently the Commissioner of Cooperatives that is involved in the supervision of the entities. And I think they have reached out to us for some assistance on the technical side. There is a committee now, I think, I can't remember which minister because there had been a shift in portfolios. I think Minister Hines was responsible at one point in time. But to look at regulation and supervision in the credit union sector, we have a couple of people that are working with them to give our take on things and to help as much as possible in adopting a framework. We are prepared to do as best as we can to support the sector in improving its operations. Currently, they are not under us, and so that you cannot come to the central bank and say you have a problem with the credit unions per se, but we are interested because they do have an impact on financial stability, although some of them may not be systemic in themselves because they may not be very large, but to you, they may be large because that might be the only source of credit that you have. So we'll do our part. We are examining it very carefully. We are working with the current supervisor, regulator, etc., as well as other teams. We have engaged a couple of years ago with the Caribbean Technical Assistance Center, and they provided us with a report which we shared with the government. And so we will do our part, and we are always available to discuss things with the sector. A couple of our people had made a presentation some time ago. I think it was pre-COVID, and this was very well received. So we are available and interested, and we will do what we can to shore up governance, performance, and stability in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Switching gears a little bit, will the central bank employ ESG versus CSR? So let me answer that. There's a school of thought that ESG evolved out of CSR. CSR being more of a kind of self-regulation where you're doing it and you are regulating the extent to which you are a good corporate citizen. And ESG tends to focus on asset management.
Sorry, Nicole, could you explain what is ESG?
I was just going to say, ESG tends to be a term used by asset managers because it looks at metrics around environmental issues, it looks at social issues and governance issues. So it tends to be more metric oriented. In fact, I remember a discussion we had a few weeks ago at senior management when Dorian, the goodly Dorian, raised the issue of sustainability. So that it is something that is a natural part of what we will be considering. We keep using the term CSR, but we do recognize that ESG is a kind of advanced, more metric focused kind of activities. So yes, to answer the person, we will have ESG considerations in all our corporate social responsibility activities and things that we decide to support. So thank you so much for that. And that came from social media. Governor, you see, we live and we learn.
Nicole,
Sure, Dorian, sure.
Yes. Let me just add a little bit on to what Nicole has said. With respect to environment, social, and governance, one of the policy initiatives that we advanced this morning in our new strat plan is greening of the financial system. So I am certain that this issue of ESG will filter into the considerations of the general public and financial institutions, etc. It will flow out naturally. In addition to which, for the management of our reserve and even the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, some aspect of ESG is reflected in how we do things in managing those reserve assets and the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Yes, the bank, we haven't gone as deep as some of these major global institutional investors like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. But we have, climbing, we are doing bits and pieces of that in our investment management activities. And I'm certain with our policy of pushing greening of the financial system, that consideration will flow out naturally into the system.
Thank you, Dorian. Switching to Forex.
Wait,
So-
before we go into that,
Sure.
which I think may be of interest to people, but I see there's another question on climate change. You want to read that question? So it will follow up directly from what.
Sure.
Dorian asked.
Well, can someone, and I turn it over to you, Governor, talk some more about climate change and how we plan to deal with it?
Yes, climate change is real. It is here already in Trinidad and Tobago, and the impact is quite stark. I mean, if you think about it, sometimes it looks like it's very slow moving. You can't see that the ocean level has gone up, but it has gone up. You can't see that the climate patterns have changed, but they have changed. We were looking at a couple of reports recently sponsored by the United Nations on Trinidad and Tobago, in particular, a vulnerability and capacity assessment 2018 report, and a more recent one on coastal zone vulnerability and adaptation assessment in 2020. What these reports showed were that the impact of rising sea levels and higher temperatures are already affecting Trinidad and Tobago. For example, coastal erosion is already affecting Las Cuevas, Blanchiseuses, Boko Bay, Palatuvia, and quite a number of other areas. The whole rise in temperature is affecting the patterns, so that you find that the droughts may become more intense and the rainy season may also become more intense. And some of the threats are also already apparent to Tobago's Main Ridge Forest Reserve. So climate change is real. For the financial system, you have people that have properties in coastal areas. They may have they have more risk involved in this. So we take it very seriously. And if I were to go back to the three themes of our strategic plan, it can fit into all of these. On the monetary policy side, on the macro environment, we see that because of climate and environmental changes, you have efforts to reduce fossil fuel use that would affect our export earnings, the price of our products, the investment in fossil and renewable energies and so forth. So it would affect our situation on a macroeconomic level. So we have to be aware of that. With the financial system, clearly some financial institutions would be more exposed as people who are borrowing from them, their properties are taken over by erosion or so. I mentioned the tourist-related attractions, whether it would be the Boko Reef, whether it would be the forests and so forth. So all of these would be affected. In terms of our internal operations now, we at the central bank want to be, as far as possible, a pioneer, not necessarily a pioneer, but let's more humbly to do our part. So we already have, a couple of years ago, efforts to conserve and to improve energy efficiency by recycling paper, by recycling plastics, by trying to do our part to reduce energy consumption. I think we still need to do some more because the central bank still looks like a Christmas tree lit up in the night, but we are working on that. And we want to also measure our carbon footprint to see are there areas that we could shore up to make our contribution. As Dorian mentioned, we are part of a network for greening the financial system, which is a collaboration of central banks across the world. We are one of the smallest and probably the only one in the Caribbean that just joined. And so we're excited to be part of that. And we are getting some assistance from the Toronto Center. We are working on that shortly. So yes, climate change is something that we are taking very seriously and integrating into all aspects of our operations.
Thanks, Governor. Some interesting questions waiting. Let me just go to the Forex question. And someone is observing that, we have the foreign exchange availability issue, and that there seems to be increasing prices of materials And they're asking, why would good prices be increasing so materially if the currency price is managed at the current rate?
Well, before I answer that question, let me be more generally as to why we did not include frontally in our strategic plan issues like, what is happening, how are we dealing with the foreign exchange markets and so forth. Not because they are not important, because they are critical and a part of our day-to-day operations. So in our strategic plan, we focus more on our capacity to deal with this, building our human capital, building our intelligence, building our analytical capacity, integrating our response with other agencies, etc. So I just wanted to assure you that we are not ignoring it. Now, with your specific question was a relation between international prices transmitting to us, whereas the exchange rate may be stable, and whereas the international prices may be stable. I mean, you didn't say the international prices are stable, I believe, but how could that happen? Well, first of all, you could have the international prices going up. And secondly, in a situation of COVID, you could have, and you do have, disruptions to trade and to travel, so that it becomes more difficult for goods to cover areas on the sea and so forth and to arrive at your shores. So then the price could go up because of that transportation cost. So certain frictions like that could be responsible for prices going up. Now, I would not be definitive because I don't know what happened in this particular case, because of course, it could be simpler than that. It could be price gouging. It could be somebody taking advantage of a market situation and raising prices. So I don't know the specifics, but I'm just saying these are the potential possibilities in this realm.
Will we be considering giving some level of priority to the granting of Forex for the purpose of reinsurance?
Right. This is an important question, and we have been talking to the insurance companies, and we have been talking to the banks. Now, the question, let me go to the overall situation in the foreign exchange market, which I've been saying a lot of times now. We have a macroeconomic difficulty that leads to an imbalance in the foreign exchange market. So there is now, and has been for some time, an excess demand. So not everyone is being satisfied. We do believe that reinsurance, and for those who are not familiar with the term, it means that you buy an insurance policy with a company, that company reinsures that with a foreign supplier to be able to manage risk across the country and across the organization. So we think that having reinsurance coverage is important for financial stability. We do urge the commercial banks, everyone to be aware of that. We are not involved at present in micromanaging the allocation of foreign currency to different persons, organizations, and so forth. We have been discussing with the banks and indicating to them that, listen, look at things broadly. You have a financial system, your brother institutions in the insurance industry may need some support. So we think that this is the way it can be handled. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor. Is there an estimated target date for the issuance of regulatory sandbox guidelines? Maybe I can try to respond to that, and Governor, you can always add if you feel the need to. At this point in time, phase 1 of the regulatory sandbox was already launched, but it's only available to fintechs that are e-money order issuers, as the law permits the granting of provisional registration to these entities, so that allows for their operation in a test environment. Phase 2 entails the broader fintech initiatives that span all 3 regulators, ourselves, TTSEC, and FIU. And that will, of course, require legislative work, so changes in the legislation and so on. And we are working together as a team to advance this. So I hope that answers the question. There's another question. Has the advancement of credit unions been considered in our plan so that they remain relevant in this evolving economy? Yes. Governor?
I sort of answered that to some extent in the question on cooperatives. As I said, to reiterate, we do have it, and it was a clear objective in our previous plan. It is embodied in our current or our future plan, because we do think credit unions are important. We currently do not supervise them. We don't know how things will evolve, but we are part of the discussion. We do provide technical support, technical assistance, and our best practices to the sector and to the government agencies that are running it. So yes, we are continuing to look at it and be prepared to support as necessary.
Thanks, Governor. Our Caribbean neighbors are leaving us behind. I mean, this comes back to the issue of what we've been talking about with the digital currencies and so on. As the person is asking, why can't it work here? And it's not so much that it can't work here. I don't know if there's anything that Dorian or the governor could answer or could add to what they've already said about CBDC and where we are in terms of the research work that we're doing and looking at it to determine if it's something that's feasible. I'm not sure if there's anything more that we can add, but the person seems to feel that if others can do it, we can do it. But of course, it's not, you know? Go ahead, Governor.
Yeah, we put Dorian on the spot a while. So let me help out a little bit. The race is not for the swiftest. This is not a thing of moving who comes first in this short race. What are we about? We are about financial stability, financial inclusion, more efficient payment systems, peer-to-peer capacities for payment and credit, lower cost, better security, less reliance on banknotes and coins, wider access and better efficiency for remittances. What I pointed out there, those aspects are really some of the reasons, the key reasons why countries' central banks go into digital currencies. But there are different ways of going about it. But I was just saying that with the cryptocurrency, and the digital currencies, we are not seeing it as a race of the swiftest. And the second part of the question, because we think that our priority now is financial stability, improving the payment system, and this is what we are about. We have a lot of technical support, we have a lot of studies, we have been engaging in understanding the thing, but we don't think that we need to be first off the blocks. A recent study by the Bank for International Settlements found that 86% of central banks are still in the stage of understanding and doing technical work on it. We find ourselves firmly in that area. When we are ready, we could move ahead. So I hope that kind of assures the person that we know what we're doing, we are understanding the process, but we are not ready to move in that stage yet. In fact, we consider that for the first 6 months of our plan period, we will still be examining it. So by the time we do our first report, which will be in March 2022, we will be at a better position to give some specifics on our timeline.
Let me just tell you, somebody was asking about whether there is any chance in respect of us exchanging the $100 cotton notes. And the short answer to that is no. We know that for national security reasons, we had a very defined period of time for the demonetization of that note and the exchange of that particular note. And outside of it being tied up, the money being tied up in a legal issue, and then the person, so the judgment going in favor of the true owner of the notes, the persons will not be able to present $100 notes for exchange. So I hope that clears that up. Harun,
Okay.
I want to ask you to say a little bit about our risk management framework. Anything that you wanted to add that people are asking to tell us a little bit about how we approach risk management at the central bank, other than what you talked about in the strat plan?
I think one of the major distinctions is that while we have the word bank inside of the organization's name, it's a little more as a supervisory entity. So sometimes you might find in the regulated entities, various risk management frameworks may be applied. You have the Basel Accords, etc. But I think we need that a more robust framework, and therefore we're guided by international best practices as well. One of the main amendments we're trying to adopt in the next 2 years is to have a more holistic view. So rather than look at risk by, let's say, for example, department, we will look at a risk by type or category and see how each department can contribute to managing that risk as best as possible. Efficiency, effectiveness, that's what we're really trying to get at. And we're hoping that in time to come as well, it should prove to be really a lot stronger than what we might have seen in years gone by. Another good add-on that we are hoping to get out of that is that ability to collaborate. While the risk management department is staffed with some really great individuals, at the end of it all, the functional department heads are in fact the owners of the risk. Those are the people who interact with a risk on a day-to-day basis. So while we might advise, we have something like a thermostat to advise exactly when you need to be aware of this or that, but we really try to liaise more with the departments themselves to correct or remediate whatever risks might be faced in the organization.
Thank you so much, Harun. Just to share with you a couple of things. Many of you may be aware of our bank mobile app, CB Noteworthy. We encourage you to download that app. We've been getting wonderful feedback about how easy it is to navigate and how helpful it is, so that you can see all the security features of the polymer notes. And we really encourage you to download the app. We also encourage you to check us out on social media. We have a great social media presence, and people have been communicating with us, and we just encourage you to continue to reach out to us, share your ideas, let us know things that you think we can do better. And later on, as part of the strat plan, we will actually be engaging you on assessing our social media presence, so that we can actually determine how we're doing, where there might be gaps, how we can close those gaps. Now we can make things better as we move forward. So just a couple reminders as we await any other questions. It's just to give you a sense of the time. It's just close to 11:20. So we have about 10 minutes or so again. Feel free to ask your questions. There's a question. What about the CSME? Any plans towards developing this any further, or is this on the back burner?
Is it, sorry, the CARICOM single market and economy? Is that what it's
that's what's there. Yeah, that's what's there. Not sure.
All right, well, if that is the question, I mean, we are not directly responsible, and it was the political authorities that are responsible, the heads of government, on working out CSME issues. So, but we would have a part to play occasionally in giving some guidance. We do attend some of the ministerial meetings with the finance ministers and so forth, as support from the central banks as a whole. But I would want to take the opportunity to mention some of the things that we're doing on the CARICOM front, because as was mentioned before, our financial stability mandate requires us to be very close to other regulators, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, such as the Deposit Insurance Corporation. They're not a regulator, but they're part of the support system, the Securities and Exchange Commission, but also with the regional regulators. Why? Because the world is becoming more and more integrated. And in the Caribbean, there are a lot of mergers, acquisitions, and you see certain things that happen in one country have magnified effect or large effects on other Caribbean territories. I mean, the clearest example was the CLICO situation. So we do have strong integrated mechanisms for collaboration. The central bank governors meet every 6 months. We discuss a whole set of issues, and you could see some of the issues on our website on the last meeting, which was a couple weeks ago. Then we have the Caribbean Group of Banking Supervisors that meets and discusses what is happening with different banks. The Caribbean Group of Insurance Regulators, they also meet quite frequently. So while we are not focused on the CSME per se, we do think regional integration is important. We are using our mechanisms to have further discussion. And now, in fact, we have, following a mandate from the central bank governors, a team, and Dorian is our representative on the team and is chairing the group, looking at ways that we could kind of streamline the movement of I wouldn't say the movement of financial resources, but to facilitate intra-regional payments. So we have people from Jamaica, Barbados, Eastern Caribbean, Guyana, and so forth on the team. So we'll be looking at that, and they'll be preparing something for the governors at the November meeting. So I just wanted to emphasize how close we are as a region, certainly on the part of the central banks and related entities.
Thanks, Governor. So you spoke to it, and Gabriel did make the point, or he's asking the question, but I believe you have spoken to it. I mean, in relation to CSME, should there be collaboration with other regulators to develop regional standards? So that's from Gabriel. Then let's go to another question. People are interested in pension reform. They would like us to share some highlights on the reform, some of the plans that we have in mind.
I don't know if somebody has been reading my notes, or they have somebody spying on what I have on my desk, but this is something that we are actually planning to do on the 4th, is the 4th of August, whatever the first Tuesday in August, the 3rd of August. We're having a presentation or launch of our financial stability report, where Patrick will talk about the overall financial stability issues. Michelle will talk about the COVID impact on the financial system, and I will start a discussion on the pension reform, because we do think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. I mean, most dramatically for citizens, you will no doubt have seen the Minister of Finance's discussion on the national insurance scheme, but closer to us and to individuals in the private sector, most people are involved, or who can, depending on their circumstance, in a pension scheme, and the central bank is responsible for overlooking this. We have some gaps in the legislation now that we need to address. When my understanding, and I mean, Patrick and those guys could correct me because this is not my forte, but my understanding is that the pension issue is in the insurance legislation. And when we had a reform of the insurance legislation, that part was not updated or given full merit. So we will be looking at that, whether we keep it in that legislation and amend it, but it will be a big part of our objectives moving forward, because people need to have comfort that their pension schemes are stable. And we have a lot of issues in that regard. The issues of contributions, who contributes? Is it the individual? What about their companies? You need to contribute enough so that the system is stable over time. And all of these different aspects we will be dealing with, and how we could strengthen our approach to the regulation and the supervision and guidance in this sector. And of course, one other major thing which will come out in the discussion, of course, would be, should it be defined benefit or defined contribution? And if a company is now in a defined, in one of the schemes, should it transit to the other? So all of these things are rich discourse. We are looking at it very carefully. We will be starting the discussion, so look out for that on the 3rd of August. And we hope to build on that and then to build some momentum for reform, legislative, institutional reform, etc. So thanks for starting the ball rolling. I really like that question.
Thanks, Governor. Another really interesting question. Do we intend to increase our presence in Tobago? And perhaps I can talk a little bit about our National Financial Literacy Program and, of course, the Financial Services Ombudsman, the Office of the Financial Services Ombudsman. So I can start there. Because we had a presence pre-COVID, in fact, we used to have visiting days in Tobago and an office that we operated from. Well, COVID has changed some of that, of course, and the way that we manage the business, but we are going to be back in Tobago because we feel strongly that we must have a presence there. So yes, we plan to increase our presence. I don't know if the question meant, will we have a central bank branch in Tobago? That's not in the strat plan, but yes, we certainly always have Tobago in mind. And you would have known that when we did the exchanges of the cotton notes a few months ago, that in fact we had a presence in Tobago so that it was easy for persons to be able to do the exchanges on that part of the island versus coming to Trinidad to do it. So yes, we intend to ramp up our presence. I'd like to just mention that we will in fact be launching a national financial literacy survey in the next few weeks. So you can look out for that. And of course, covering Trinidad, covering Tobago, and you will certainly feel our presence there. So Governor, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that particular question.
I think you handled it quite well in terms of our general thing. One area that we are trying to help in particular, or two areas, one is on the technical attachments. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, we have a wonderful vacation internship programs and attachments have been suspended for a while. So it, that affects all of us. But the participants from Tobago have been a big part of our engagement. So we look forward to that. On the statistics side, we are trying to beef up even more. We've had discussions with the Tobago personnel about Tobago-specific statistics, so we provide that as best as we can. We do understand there is a dearth of statistics at the national level, and we would appreciate if more attention could be paid to Tobago-specific information. But yes, we are close with them. I'm missing traveling to Tobago. I haven't been for a while, so hopefully I could get to go as quickly as possible. But we do have clear engagement, and we want to continue all parts of the country, whether it's Lavantil, Pinal, Tobago, whatever, to make sure that everyone is included and understands where we are coming from and can comment and tell us what we should do or what we are not doing.
Thank you, Governor. Quick one, central banks are in a powerful position to support the development of green finance models and enforce an adequate pricing of environmental and carbon risk by financial institutions. Do we have any public financial governance policies through which we can address environmental risk and promote sustainable finance and reduce the impact of climate change? So we've spoken to some of that. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Governor.
Yes, in the sense that our role would be more indirect, in the sense of kind of encouraging or attaching the correct risk to climate-related difficulties or dangers. So that when we talk to the banks and when we look at what they're doing and we assess the risk, we will try to make sure that the risks involved in climate-related issues are properly addressed. And we hope by that means it would discourage going into certain avenues that may not be productive. We do think, however, that a national discourse is important because incentives would not only come or should not only come from the indirectly on the financial risk side, but perhaps legislation to say, okay, you cannot mine in this area, you cannot build a house in this area. The town and country planning needs to organize, and I think they are doing that. As I mentioned, the report on the vulnerability and capacity assessment that was sponsored by the UN did give up some very specific recommendations, and we hope that some of these are helping to move things along in the right direction and guide the allocation of resources. We will do our part as best we can. We can't say that we will, open up some green finance thing. This is not our role, but we will try to guide as much as possible, point out the risks, and create and encourage incentives to go in the right direction. And certainly any national dialogue, we have an excited team of economists just ready to roll and comment on all these different things. So we will add our intellectual capacity as we can to any debate on these issues.
Governor, we have two more questions waiting, and I know it's 11:31, but let me just squeeze the two last questions in. One says, given the known U.S. limited supply, U.S. dollar supply, are there any indicators on the cross-currency utilization? Should we also publish regularly price indices? I guess they want, should we publish on a regular basis price indices?
There are two different questions or two
It's two questions. It's two questions from one person.
Okay,
So
but
the cross-currency utilization and the regular publication of price indices.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't talking about price indices related to Forex. Well, the whole issue, as I said, on the foreign exchange market is a macroeconomic situation. We know what it is. The cross-country dimension that was just posed, it is really it really doesn't fundamentally affect anything. Why? Because the US is a reserve currency. So if you get Canadian dollars, if you get euros, if you get whatever, you could easily switch it into US. I think I may understand what the person may be kind of getting at, in the sense that sometimes you may find that some institution may say, well, you can't get US, but you could get euros, you could get Canadian dollars. But we don't think it's a fundamental thing on the cross-currency side, because if it were, let's say we're talking about a currency that were not a reserve currency, then it would be difficult to switch from one to the next. So I just wanted to mention that. On the price indices side, well, we publish what we get. We do. If someone finds that we may want to publish more, let us know, and we could do it. We have our price indices. We have the RPI from the Central Statistical Office. We have index of building material prices, wholesale prices, I think, and some other price indicators. So we do have them there. I think they are on, all of them are on our data center. But please, commentator, look on our website, see if you find what you want. If you don't find it, send us a text, send us an email, send us a WhatsApp, and we will see if we could put it on so that we could, serve your needs. We don't develop them, but we could publish them. So.
Thanks, Governor. So we are winding up now. Just to let people know one interesting thing. When this pandemic began, we obviously had to make adjustments. And one adjustment we made coming out of our museum side would have been to do certain things virtually so that the country could still experience what we have to offer. So we have had a number of virtual exhibitions. Just letting you know that we are ramping up for an exhibition in August, the transition to polymer. It will be in the virtual space, and we hope in the next few months, we're just hoping that we will be able to invite people to the physical exhibition in the next few months after that. So just letting you know that, thanking you for the privilege of your time, and we wish you an exceptional day. We hope this was useful, and we look forward to your feedback. God's richest blessings. Thanks again for your time.